Hello and welcome to the Rogue Monkey podcast and season 10. My name is Kevin Pickard and I host the show that shares insightful stories to motivate, inspire and support you on your own journeys through both work and life. I'm not sure how we've got to more than 70 episodes, but here we are. And I'm starting the latest season speaking to a wonderful entrepreneur and businesswoman. Natalie Bamford is the founder of Colleague Box, an incredible company that was born during the depths of the lockdown in the pandemic during 2020. It was a project that started from home to help connect people isolated by the restrictions that were in place at the time and send gift boxes to colleagues, friends and families to spread a little cheer. Following a roller coaster journey which we explore today, Colleague Box are celebrating their 2-year anniversary, with a few of the headlines being that they turned over more than £1 million in their first year, and Natalie went on to win the East Midlands Businesswoman of the Year. This is a great insight into the journey of an entrepreneur, and what's so incredible is that Natalie and her husband are balancing this crazy business journey in a pandemic with having 2 young children at home. It's really interesting and I hope you take a lot from the interview. Just a quick one before we get started. If you're not already following us on social media, please make sure you head over to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, as well as LinkedIn to keep up to date with all the exciting guests that we've got coming up over the next 8 weeks. So here we go with the opening episode of season 10 of the Rogue Monkey podcast, episode 73, Natalie Bamford and Colleague Box, exploring the startup journey and building the Smile Factory. Hi, Natalie, and welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's very exciting.
I have to say I'm really excited about this one because very rarely do I hear a podcast and then end up following up and actually having a conversation with them. So this was a really interesting opportunity. So I'm sure we'll get into the story of how we ended up connecting as the story unfolds. But do you want to give our listeners and viewers just an introduction, I guess, to who you are and your story?
Yeah, so I'm Natalie Bamford. I am a new CEO of Colleague Box. So Colleague Box is a gifting service that was set up during the pandemic. Yes, we're a COVID business, as they say. So it's May 2020. We didn't really intentionally set up to be a business. I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but the company that myself and my husband worked for at the time, a technology company based in Lincoln, we wanted to send out a gift to our colleagues. It was just whilst we were all working from home, we're far flung across the UK. There were 76 of us, and we just wanted something to put smiles on people's faces that could fit in the letterbox, just spread a bit of positivity. Because at that time, if you remember May 2020, it was quite doom and gloom. There's a lot of bad news going on. There's a lot of doom scrolling. Well, I was certainly doom scrolling. People were on furlough, were working from home, sort of missing that connection that we had from working in the office, etc., the camaraderie, so to speak. And so we just wanted to put smiles on people's faces. Well, I say we, it was actually our CEO at the time. I can't take the full credit for the idea. So he tasked us with this. So we wanted a gift box to put smiles on people's faces, and go ahead and see what you can do. Now that's easier said than done. But at the time, if you remember, we weren't allowed to just go to supermarket whenever we fancied. We didn't have anything like wholesale or contracts or anything like that in place. It was just we needed to make 76 of these boxes. So that was quite a task in itself. But we did it, and we got the boxes out to our colleagues, and the feedback was phenomenal. People absolutely loved it. It was that element of surprise. Obviously, they didn't know it was coming. It had a nice personalised message in there from our CEO. It said something like, hang on in there. Thank you for working from home. Thank you for being on furlough. We'll be back together soon. Little did we know it was still, but the feedback was brilliant. And a lot of our colleagues were putting it on social media, and that got picked up by some other companies who said, hey, I love those boxes. Is there any chance we could have some of those for our team or our colleagues that are either on furlough or working from home or whatever? And that's when we realised there's something in this. So it's not just for our team. This could be a business. Because although gift boxing is not a new thing, we've not reinvented the wheel, but at the time it was really corporate gifting is either, branded mug and pen, which is fine, not the most exciting, or you get like your big hampers, which you'd usually send to like your top salespeople or whatever. There was not really anything that was high quality but affordable that you could buy en masse to treat your entire workforce, so your entire team. And I think there was a real need for it, particularly at that point, with us all being working from home and whatnot. There was a real need for companies wanting to keep in touch with their colleagues and stay connected and have a way of, like I say, I keep saying this, and I'll probably say it a lot throughout the recording, of spreading happiness and positivity, because that's what it's all about. So yeah, it basically spiraled from there. How much further do you want me to keep going? Do you want me to carry on or do you want me to pause?
The thing that caught me, and I guess now would be a good time to explain, I guess, how we connected. So I was listening to a podcast, as I'm sure you've been listening to a podcast, quite well-known one, the High Performance Podcast. And I'd kind of been fascinated by the way it evolved from, I guess, right at the start, some relatively single sports discussions, maybe in the first 2 or 3 episodes, and very quickly diversified and went out and spoke to such a huge range of people. And there was a huge inspirational element to it, but most of it was either in the comments or just people generally trading information on social media. And then they got to a point where they started interviewing people who at the end of their podcast had been inspired, and I guess listener journeys. But it's only obviously a very small section, and you have to kind of cover it in a whistle-stop tour. And you were fortunately on there. And I listened to that and thought there are so many people out there who either were thinking about it or started something, whether it was a business or anything else during the lockdown. And actually, let's share some of those stories, because we're now in a position where I think people are almost racing to get back to the way it was. And I think some of the incredible stories and value from the last 2 years, it was, of course, a very difficult time for a lot of people, but there was also some incredible stories and inspiring stories that came out of that. So I really wanted to capture that. And at what point did it go from somebody maybe sent you a message and said, oh, we've heard that you did this to your company, to kind of the steps that followed? What was that transition like?
Well, we were just working from our home office at the time. Our house was beginning to resemble a warehouse. So we had boxes sort of stacked up in our hallway. So as you came through the front door, there was just boxes, and our garage was like bursting at the seams, because we were trying to manage it whilst, getting a warehouse, for example, is a huge step that we didn't feel like we were completely ready for at that point. We were getting orders of like 100 or so, which was brilliant. But so we're still working from home. And then in the June, we had a call with a company, very, very well-known global logistics company, who wanted to send out some pumpkins. So real life pumpkins in a box. They wanted to do a pumpkin carving competition across their team. So it had a pumpkin carving kit, like a little leaflet explaining what was going on, and a loot bag and some sort of Halloween decorations. So we went through logistics and really were thinking, how on earth do you get hold of pumpkins? But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So we went through the whole, yeah, no problem. We can do that. Thinking, I don't know if we can, but let's go for it. And then we said, how many were you thinking? And they dropped 21,000 on us. And of course, you keep the poker face. Yeah, no problem. We can do that. And after we came off the call, we're like, right, okay, we need a warehouse. There's no way we're going to get 21,000 of anything in this house. So that was the real catalyst. So we took that call in the June, and then in the September, we got the keys for our first warehouse. And so that was a real huge big step. And then obviously we needed a team of some kind, because we worked out probably the two of us couldn't quite do that. We could try, but it's not going to cut it. So we needed a team. So we actually used a university, so their student employment agency, which was brilliant, because this was brand new to us, bearing in mind we've not run a company before. So all of a sudden you're having to deal with like HR and finance and accounts and all the rest of it. So that was a real turning point. So obviously we got the property, so we got our first warehouse, we got a team, and then the pumpkins started to arrive. And you start to realise how many 21,000 of anything is. The boxes arrived. They were so flat boxes arrived, And my husband had just he'd just got his forklift driver's license the day before. And then this huge lorry pulled up outside our warehouse. I mean, goodness knows what our neighbours must have thought. And he pulled one side open, and it was just stacked full of these flat boxes, like literally from the bottom of the lorry right to the top, like double layers. And poor Adam had such a baptism of fire for using the forklift. Like, he just got his license the day before, and all of a sudden he's having to like reverse, and like, it was crazy. And then we realized that it was the same on the other side of the lorry. So he pulled that open, and all of a sudden this warehouse that we were so excited about getting, we got the keys and we're looking around and like so excited, realized that this is probably too small actually. But when there's nothing in it, it seems huge. And all of a sudden you pack it full of 21,000 of anything, and it was like, okay, yeah, we're probably going to need a bigger space. But we got through it and we completed that project. And then the same company wanted 23,000 Advent style Christmas gift boxes with 12 different gifts in each box in specific places. So that was another challenge as well. And that's when we got this place. So this is called the Smile Factory. We've called this place the Smile Factory. So this is our second warehouse. But at the time when we first got it, so this was in December, it was basically a glorified storage unit. So we moved out of the first warehouse and moved into here, so in July. And we really set this up as our HQ. So it's nice and bright, as you can probably see behind me. It's nice and bright and colourful, and we call it the Smile Factory because we like to smile here, but also, and it's so cheesy, but we like to think that the boxes that we're putting together here are putting smiles on people's faces. So it just sort of made sense. And there's also the Dream Factory and the Chocolate Factory in Derby already. So we thought we may as well put another factory on the map. So it was nice to get in here and make it our own space. It's a bit of a blank canvas. So we've got nice pink walls and nice green floor and all that jazz. And it's a nice place to work. Even though it's a warehouse, it's quite nice. It's a nice spot. So yeah, gosh. So we did the pumpkins and the Christmas boxes, which basically meant we had to grow up as a business and as business owners pretty quickly, because you soon realise that if you've not got processes and things in place, then you're going to trip up. And so we learned a lot during that time. For me personally, I learned that it's okay to ask for help, because I used to be so proud. I used to feel like if you ask for help, then that's a sign of weakness, or it's because you're a failure. And actually I realised that it's not at all, because it's a very brave move to ask for help. And more often than not, you will get it if you ask nice enough. And we had, so one of the gifts, so remember I said it had 12 gifts in this gift box. 2 of the gifts got held up at customs. We only ordered 2 that had to be done overseas. They got held up at customs, which meant we were 3 weeks behind, because they had to open up the van and all this jazz. So we're 3 weeks behind, and that's when I asked for help. And it was just amazing. I had like family turn up, friends, the business community just came and helped for a day, just helped pack, and I really saw the sense of community and spirit and the support that people wanted to give, it was just amazing. It was so nice to be part of it, even though it was like ridiculously stressful, don't get me wrong. And people talk about work-life balance. There was no balance at that point. It was just work, and Adam was practically working like 24 hours. So he'd come home for like to have a 2-hour sleep, then head back to the warehouse. When he came in, I was sat at home on the laptop working, and we sort of like looked at each other, looked back. He went his way, I went my way. So it was crazy, but I wouldn't change it, because I felt like it was good to go through that. It was a real learning curve for us, and it helped us to shape how we do business now, basically. So although it was really tough, it was a tough time, it was exciting though, it was fun. And I heard I think it was Stephen Bartlett the other day say that when he sold his company for millions of pounds, that wasn't the best day, that was the worst. The best day was when he was looking back at some of the challenges that he went through and realised that actually that was the good bit. So what I'm trying to do now is appreciate the journey rather looking at the end goal, which don't get me wrong, I'm not entirely sure what that is yet. I mean, if we can sell it for millions, brilliant. I'm not going to turn that down, but I'm trying to enjoy the journey. So even when it's hard and you have a tough day, things like that, I'm really trying to just go, yeah, but this is pretty cool, right? Being your own boss and all that. And my daughter wasn't very well, so I've got a 4-year-old and a 14-year-old. So obviously trying to juggle the two, and I could just obviously I let the team know and things, and I put things in place, but I could have the day off and just spend that with her. And obviously I was still working in between, but it was nice to know that I've got that flexibility to do that. And because of where I used to work in the past, not the technology company, that was really hard to ask for that time off, and you felt guilty and awkward, or you was made to feel like a nightmare for asking, and I hated that feeling. So I'm trying to just enjoy a lot of the journey, or the positives that come from being a business owner as well. Yeah, it's stressful and the sleepless nights and all that, but I'm really trying to hone in on the positive sides as well.
Right. There are so many questions that are spinning around my head right now. So no, it's fantastic. And I think the nice thing is it's, I was listening to the high performance team yesterday, and they were interviewing the CMO at Nike, or former CMO at Nike. Obviously that's it almost feels like when somebody goes into a company like that, there is all of that safety net team around them. And although obviously it came from humble beginnings, it obviously had backing and all of those sorts of things. What I find fascinating is when we explore stories like this, you're reaching out, but the people you're reaching out, relatively speaking, are this kind of local community. There isn't a manual that says, right, once you've made that decision to start a business, here you go, and just follow this and everything will be fine. And actually to have gone through, everyone, to have gone through that period from March, where there was a lot of noise, and then the end of March, obviously lockdown hit, to within 6-7 weeks of that, something like positive coming out of it, and almost not even have time to take in what's going on in the world around you because it's going so quickly. Was there any point between the first post, I guess, tech company discussion, so once that first order from external had come and actually inquired about, what was the process from there to taking the leap and actually going, right, we're going to go full steam with this from a human point of view? Obviously there's the business element of it all, but what was those discussions like in the house of, how's this going to go? Are we going to go for it? Do we do it? Do we not do it? Whilst hiding underneath boxes.
Yeah, it was a bit like, we've got this opportunity. Shall we see where it goes? And almost what's the risk? It's not like we'd bought a warehouse and we had a team that we needed to support or any overheads. We were sitting on a bit of stock, not much. And that's still true to today. We don't really believe in sitting on lots of stock. It just doesn't make sense. So it was kind of like, what's the worst that can happen? And I felt at the time, potential, jobs might be at risk, and not just ours. I think that was felt across the UK. And so one of my parents got made redundant, for example, but we got a job here, so it's all good. So I think it was a bit of, let's go for it. And I've actually spoken to quite a few people that set up during lockdown that had that similar notion, or that similar mindset of, we're already in a pretty dire situation as the UK or as the world. Why not give it a go? Particularly if it's not going to cost you, I'm not suggesting, some people say, quit your job and start your own business. But then if it's leaving you in lots of debt and lots of stress, don't do that. But if you've got an opportunity, you've already seen that it's a viable business, people are interested, and people are saying, so it's got onto a good thing. People say, it's so simple, but so brilliant. And it's not simple. It's a simple concept, but trust me, it's not simple putting all those things in lots and lots of boxes. But I think it was just, let's run with it. Let's see where it goes. Let's see where it takes us. And if it doesn't work out, no problem. But let's give it our all. Because if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, at least it's not because it's something we've done or something we could have done. Because we will look back in 6 months, 2 years' time, whatever, and say, oh, that was a really good idea. We should have really gone for it. So that's why we ended up getting this list of companies to talk to. and I sent a couple of emails out, and that's where we got that big 21,000, the 23,000 order from. So there was an element of, you know what, let's just go for it. Let's see what happens, because, you know, worst things happen. It doesn't work out. We gave it a try. It's a new experience. We got a load of chocolate and beer at our house, so from the stock. So happy days. So yeah, worst case of that, let's go for it.
Do you know what's quite interesting? Because again, I reflect back on how I first heard about what you guys are doing. And I remember I set up this podcast about 6-8 weeks before the pandemic took hold in the UK, and not by obviously planning, but that was just how it worked out. And on my second season, obviously, there was a lot of people sitting at home. And I remember sending a message to Damien Hughes at that point and saying, "Oh, I've heard you on this chat." Well, I attended a virtual kind of webinar that he was hosting. And I said, "Look, fully appreciate you're probably flooded with requests right now. Would you be able to have a quick chat?" Anyhow, we did a podcast and was chatting away to him, and he said, "Oh yeah, you know, we're at that point, I think they were a few months in." And he's like, "Yeah, we're just going to see how it goes. Like, it's a new venture. We're not sure what's going to happen." And I saw him before Christmas, and I think they'd just broken 13 million downloads at that point. And I said, "How does it feel after 2 years?" And I think that's quite a timely discussion, because I know when we were prepping for this, you saying, you know, we're coming up to that now 2-year anniversary. So what's kind of your reflections now from that kind of whistle stop first 3-4 months to kind of where you are now, where hopefully there's a little bit more stability and perhaps a lot of learning has taken place?
Oh yeah, it has for sure. And you know, we hit 1.3 million turnover after our first year, which it seemed to, and I appreciate that's incredible in terms for a new business to do that, but I just didn't realize at the time. And it's the same with, we've had some brilliant award wins, for example, and not to sound complacent at all, but it's you kind of don't have chance to celebrate those wins because you're constantly in it and involved and thinking, yeah, that's brilliant, but next we need to do that, and we need to do that, and we need to do this, and you're constantly moving with it. So for reflection wise, it's like I've stopped, you know, with Dragon's Den. I watched the latest season of it, and when you're hearing those business figures, and you shouldn't compare because it's all relative to you, isn't it? But I think hearing some of those figures, I think, gosh, we did quite well, didn't we? We've done quite well. And it was almost like that, having to see it from another perspective that makes you realise that, and it's okay to say, yeah, you've done all right, you've done pretty well. But I think it's just such a typical British thing that you don't really go, you know, you're blooming brilliant, you've done so brilliant. And I always say it to the team, I think that my team are amazing. And I say it to Adam enough, but I don't really, it's just not a thing you do, is it, where you go, I've done a really good job, like, look at this is brilliant. And we have visitors come to the Smile Factory and they go, gosh, can you believe this is all yours and you created this? And you just have to, I just sort of not take it in my stride, because again, that sounds like quite big-headed, but it's just, I think if I think about it too much, it can be almost overwhelming. It's like almost having to take each day as it comes and each week. And don't get me wrong, I love what we've achieved, and I love you know, the awards and things like that, and the 1.3 million got us quite a few headlines at the time in the papers and things, which is brilliant. But I think I just have to keep my head down and just keep going, and not enjoy it, because I do, but not get complacent with it, and just keep striving and going forward. Because one thing that I'm conscious of is like not to be a lockdown business and that's it. Like, we need to be seeing in the present and the future, and you know, we're taking big steps to make sure that's happening. And I'm really pleased to say that we have such loyal customers that are continuing to use us on weekly, monthly, you know, or seasonal basis, which is amazing. Constantly getting new customers as well. And people do say, oh, you know, but you were a lockdown business, are you still going to see people wanting corporate gifts and gifting? And the answer is, yeah, we've seen a lot of it. And if you think about it, before COVID, corporate gifting did exist. So why would it not exist after COVID. Yes, it was more relevant during COVID because obviously people wanted to stay connected, but we've still got people working from home, got hybrid working. There's so many different reasons that people are using the gift boxes as well. So it's not just for companies to send to colleagues. We're seeing them used for a whole range of uses, and in even like for marketing campaigns, for example, they're seeing huge return on investment in, which is something we never even thought of when we set up the company or as we've been going through. So it's nice to see organic innovation of the boxes and the gifts, because it's what our customers have done. So it's not us necessarily pushing down particular paths, it's just how our customers have gone, really love these gift boxes, we're going to use it as this, and we're like, yeah, that's brilliant, how can we support that, what can we do? So it's been an exciting journey. I've definitely grown and evolved as a person during this. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story. So when I first started in Colleague Box, I just wanted to do my best. I didn't really know what I was able to bring to the table, because it's not like, oh yeah, I've got experience in gift boxing or I've got experience in running this. I had zero previous experience. I just wanted to do my best, and I wanted to give it a good shot, and I wanted to do Adam proud and my children, whatever, as you do. I make myself proud, of course, but I just wanted to do my best. So I was basically in charge of like the social media and various other things. And Adam wrote out my job description just to sign off, just to make it formal and things like that. And I read it and I said, I can't do that. And he said, you're already doing it though. This is what you do on a daily basis. And I said, but I would never go for this job. I would think that I wouldn't be able to do it, even though it's literally what I was doing. So how crazy is that I didn't have almost like the confidence in myself that I could do this job, and yet it was what I was already doing. As it was written down, I was like, oh gosh, I didn't realise, and I wouldn't have gone for the job. So it's been nice for me to obviously be involved from the start, and now I'm CEO, which is amazing. I never thought it would be a job title I'd ever have. It's it's exciting. It's still a journey, obviously, but I'm going back to trying to enjoy that journey rather than like constantly thinking, right, what's next? How do we do this? How do we evolve? And that's fine. I think it's always good to, we don't want to get stagnant. I said we have a lot of returning customers, so that keeps us on our toes in terms of new and offerings and services, etc. But I'm trying to sometimes take a step back and go, breathe, it's fine, it's all good, just enjoy it, be proud, take those little moments and of reflection, of particularly as it's coming up for 2 years soon, and that it's on one hand it seems like it's flown by, on the other hand it's like, gosh, 2 years, I don't know, it's crazy really.
So there's three things that popped into my head off the back of that. The first thing is around listening to customers and evolving. And I find that quite timely because we're kicking off season 10 of my podcast. The finale to season 9 was actually with my current boss. And we spoke about evolving the sports offering by listening to customers. And that on its own is a topic I'm sure we could talk about for ages. The second one is around the imposter syndrome. And I know we spoke about it before. So I think that those areas are massive. And I think also this area of like looking forwards, but without not losing what you're doing now, like you mentioned around actually kind of enjoying that process. So the first thing around listening, I guess that's just a case of the fact people are coming back. They're almost telling you what they want, but there's a difference between being told something and actually pivoting perhaps different aspects of your business to actually meet that need. Because some organizations might turn around and say, well, we know what we're doing. Why would we listen to anyone else tell us what to do? Whereas actually being such a young, fresh, and like you say, not having a background in it, you're almost going, well, let's take in all of the advice and the feedback and actually learn from that. So what was that process like? And is that something you kind of, I guess, actively do now you're a couple of years in?
Yeah, well, when we first started, this is probably more about the personal growth, but it does relate back to what you just said. I felt like I had to know all the answers. I had to know what I was doing. I had to know this, that, and the other. And actually, I realised there's a lot of power in not knowing, because there are opportunities to learn and give it a go. And once I really figured that out, I actually made such a strong point for me, because I thought you don't have to know all the answers. This is a learning opportunity. Go out and learn about it, and then become an expert in your own right. So rather than going on what has been done before or what you think you should be doing, try a different way or try a different path. And that's probably one of the best learning things that I've taken on board during this process, is that you don't have to know all the answers. And for someone that, like when I started driving, for example, I was like 20, something like that, I hated being a novice because I just wanted to know how to do it. I just wanted to be good. Like I just wanted to be a good driver. I hated having to go through the learning process. So in terms of personal growth, that's a real big eye opener for me, because I've realised that it's okay not to know all the answers. In fact, sometimes it's a good thing, because you look at things with fresh eyes rather than going on what's been done in the past or what people usually do. It's okay to not know and then adapt and learn and grow. And so that's been quite nice to go through that. And then, yeah, in terms of the innovation of the boxes, it's totally right. You're totally right. So down to the listening and the suggestions that come through, because although we have a website that's got all of our gift boxes on that, probably 80 to 90% of our gifts that we actually send out are bespoke. So it's people that get in touch and say, oh, I saw this gift box on your website, but I'm after changing this, or can we add this, or want to put our branded merchandise in it, that's fine. Or we've got this budget, we're to send to this many people, and it's got the theme of X, Y, and Z, or the other might want to do it like around wellbeing or mental health. So it's great to have the gift boxes on the site, but it's almost like a shop window, so you can have a look, but a lot of the time, most of the time, they're bespoke boxes. And some of them said to me, oh, that must be a logistical nightmare. Well, not necessarily. It's not really. As long as we have a little bit of time to actually get the stock in. It's not, and when I say time, I mean like a week. It doesn't have to be months in advance. So that's fine. But it's also what set us out from competitors, because we have seen a lot more gift boxes pop up during COVID times, which is absolutely fine. But I think it's what helps us stand out, because sometimes you can be so rigid in your offerings that it puts people off, because we never want to say, no, we can't do that, because if we can, we will. So it's like with the personalisation, for example, that's what the original boxes were, had that note in from our CEO, just that personalised message. And it was and we used nicknames, so it wasn't like to Christopher, because he's never been called Christopher in his life, apart from when his mum, when he's getting told off. It was to Chris, and it had the personalised message. And that's something that's evolved with us and carried on through right up to now. We don't want to lose that, but we also don't hate charging extra for that. We've seen some companies where by the time you add on, your branding on the front, the personalised message, and maybe an insert inside, and all of a sudden the price that you thought it was, it's been ramped up by an extra 25 quid or something because of all the extras you've added on. And we hate doing that, so we don't charge extra for that. It's all part of the service. And so I think it's things like this that I'm hoping really helps us stand apart. And like I say, the different ways the gift boxes are used, if we can help support that, like with the direct mail campaign, we 100% do and will, because if it works for that company, hopefully either they'll come back or they'll spread the good news about us. And more often than that does happen. We get a lot of people saying, oh, they heard about you from so-and-so who received a box. And I think that kind of referral marketing is just priceless, isn't it? If people are spreading good word about you and you're not having to do it yourself, it's just brilliant. We love that.
Yeah, and there is, there's some research out there. I can't remember if it's 100 or 1,000 true fans, but the concept is that actually, unless you're trying to take over the world, if you like, actually, there's nothing wrong with having a really, really good base of returning clients, and your products and services adapt to meet the needs of them, but you meet them so well that those people won't go anywhere else. And actually, that from a business model point of view, that's more stable than having, a £1 million a year marketing campaign, knowing that your churn is so high that you're constantly trying to get new customers. Whereas I think having that kind of unique USP actually is something that really kind of adds value. And I guess that the second point really that I wanted to unpick off the back of that is is this imposter syndrome, because if you remove the story, if you like, and go on Dragon's Den, where you might have a 2-line or a 3-line story, and then Deborah Meaden or Stephen or whoever it is turns around and says, right, numbers. If you actually go down to products shipped, journey time, actual turnover, all of those sorts of things, profit margins, and actually be able to go, this is a successful business. As an observer, like watching Dragon's Den, you go, wow, that's fantastic. Hat off to them for doing that. When you put yourself in that position, how does that feel? And where do you think we've talked about staying grounded and all those sorts of things, but where do you think it comes from? The fact that, like, I can't do that, or is that good enough? Or like, where does that where did that emerge from? Do you know?
No idea. It's frustrating. Like, it's so frustrating because it hasn't held me back, but I wish I was, I see some really confident people. I think, oh gosh, I wish I was a bit more like you. And I'm getting there. I am getting there. I'm getting better. But I think a lot of people actually do suffer with imposter syndrome. The more it's talked about, the more people come forward and say, oh yeah, I do that sometimes, or I go through that sometimes. And I've read a few books about it, and it's often mentioned on like the High Performance podcast, for example, and various other business podcasts that I listen to. People do sometimes say that, don't they? That they say, I know that other people can do it, but I don't think I can. I don't know where it comes from at all. But a lot of people got in touch, which was lovely, off the back of my high performance stint, let's say. And I was talking about women winning Businesswoman of the Year award. And I said that when I first got notified that I was a finalist, I felt embarrassed. And the reason for that was because I didn't feel deserved of it. I felt that any minute now that I was going to get a call or an email say, I'm really sorry, we've made a mistake. You're not actually a finalist. It was, Natalie, someone else that should have been. And I honestly felt, truthfully, oh my gosh, they've made a mistake. This is so embarrassing. It says my name. People are going to get in touch, and it's not really me. And then, so that was in May last year. And then by the time it got to the awards in the November, I sat at the table and my name was it's in the booklet or something like that, or it was up on the screen. And I actually felt to the point where I was like, yeah, I deserve to be here. And that was enough for me. Like, I didn't mind not winning. I don't get me wrong, I'm really chuffed that I did. But just to make that journey from being literally embarrassed that I'd been finalised because I thought they'd made a mistake, to actually get into the awards and thinking, you know what, yeah, you deserve a place at the table. That was a nice, this is where I mean that it used to be bad, it's getting better. And that's a great example of that. I did get to the point where I was like, at least I deserve to be here. So that's nice. But I think it's just from being a complete novice at it all, and you think that the driving lesson thing, I felt like I need to know it all, or I need to have a degree, or I need to have been in business for X, Y, and Z amount, or I need to know this, that, and the other. And I suppose it was from being a complete newbie in it all that made me think, I'm not deserving, or I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing, or I don't know. It's a crazy what your mind goes through, isn't it? Or like that negative like chimp in your head that's saying you can't do this, shouldn't do this, and it's like that battle of wills of like, yes I can and I will. You just watch. So no, it's hard.
I think that's the real value of stuff like podcasts and YouTube interviews and all these sorts of things, because maybe previously once a year there might be a business networking conference and CEOs might go along, and you'd be sitting having a conversation perhaps in the bar in the evening, and 10 people will go, oh yeah, this is the same for me, I feel exactly the same. Whereas now you're in a position where a conversation like this goes out and thousands of young male and female entrepreneurs listen to this and go, oh, it's not just me then. It's even the people that, we deem to be really, really successful, and yet they still feel it. So I'm just going to crack on. So I think that's, and I guess the layer that really kind of adds an inspirational value. And I think back to an interview I did in my last season with a young female entrepreneur called Kat Kirk. She was talking about it from a parent point of view. Now, any parent that went through that first year of the pandemic, and if we turn around and if we were looking at this with a blank slate and didn't know the background and just said, right, parent, you've got this role that you're doing, like your day job, if you like, you're doing bits from home, you've got two kids to look after, and they go, wow, that must have been a real juggling act. Hold on, whilst the house is sky high and a business is emerging. So, and I'm sure there's a lot of parents out there going, I couldn't do it. How the hell did you actually manage that? So just touching on that from like a parent point of view, what was that aspect of the journey like? Because again, I think it's one that a lot of people can relate to.
Oh gosh, it feels like a lifetime ago now. I remember being really, really worried about the kids because the eldest was no longer at school. The youngest was no longer playing with children her age. And I just remember having like this constant worry of, what about their development? Because I went into full on like ordering off Amazon like 3 o'clock in the morning. I need to get paint. We need to do paints tomorrow. We need to do crafts. We need to do this. We need to do that. So I knew they had things to do at home, and I was in the fortunate position where we could order things in and I could play with them and make sure that their needs were met to an extent. But I kept on worrying about what damage will this do to their development. I've kind of have a bit of education background, so I worked with children with special educational needs as a teaching assistant for 4 years, trained at night school, and sort of changed career earlier on, just as Lola was starting school actually, and she's 14, so it gives a rough idea of time. So I was just thinking about that, and I thought that's really nothing that I can. There's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing I can change. So all I can do is try and give them the best time possible at home, and not let them see the worry. And I'm in another fortunate position that there's a 10-year age gap between my children. So although I had a 2-year-old, I also had a 12-year-old who was really, really good at helping out. So when we were obviously in the thick of it in terms of working on the business, this was from home at that point. The older one would help us out. So I'm forever grateful and indebted to her, and she doesn't let me forget it. I can
hear the phone ringing at 2 a.m. when they're 18 saying, Mum, can you come and pick me up? Do you not remember when?
Yeah, do you remember that time during the pandemic? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm like forever indebted to her for that. So she was really helpful. But yeah, it was, I think, as all parents went through, it was a really tough time because you just thought, when's this going to end? Like, when will they be able to go back to school? Not just so you can have a break, but for their development reasons. Because I like I say, I tried to make it a great environment at home, and we did all kinds of things, and like, in terms of like craft, whatever we could do at home, baking and all the rest of it, as most parents across the UK did. But one thing I couldn't do was be their age, and I think that's something that's greatly needed. So my 2-year-old had needed to be around all the 2-year-olds. The 12-year-old needed to be around all the children her age. And the education I wasn't too concerned about. There was a lot of online for the 12-year-old learning through school, and I was able to do things with the 2-year-old with no problem. But it was that worry about them not, like, what happens if you're not around people your own age, like, and particularly we're really close with my parents, so our family is really close, and having that cut off as well, and like, are they going to know who they are? Like, when we next see them, like, thank goodness for FaceTime, I suppose. But it was just such a strange feeling of like kind of being totally isolated, and yeah, it was a tricky one. And then as we got really busy, that Christmas I was talking about, we were allowed out at that point. I had family to help with childcare during the later nights, or Adam and I would just tag team it as much as possible. But yeah, I was, I don't know, it's again, when you're in the moment and when you're doing it, you don't really think about it. But someone said to me the other day, oh gosh, so you had a 2-year-old as well? And I was like, oh yeah, I did. I didn't really think about, oh gosh, I'm running this business and I've got a 2-year-old, because it was just happening on a day-to-day. I don't know. I think we're just all a bit crazy and delirious with the whole pandemic thing going on.
I think it's really nice though, in the sense that if you ask a young parent, or a parent that's about, say, a mum and dad that are about to become a parent, how do you feel about it? And I don't know this, and I'm not prepared. And the kind of thing when people talk about starting a business, obviously very different things. But actually, you speak to anyone who's 3, 6, 2 years into a business, and someone goes, "You just figure it out." And actually, I think there's, I guess, a lot of transferable lessons that come out of being a parent through the pandemic and actually taking leaps in life that we weren't prepared for. Because I'm sure if we all sat down Christmas 2019 and went, by the way, this is what's coming in the next 18 months, we'd have probably all gone, we'd have had a meltdown. Whereas actually, you speak to a lot, of course, it was extremely difficult and some huge challenges, but actually the level of resilience that parents demonstrated to manage, not saying thrive, because it wasn't the kind of situation where we could do that, but actually just to be able to get through it, as well as we could. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I guess I've got a couple of questions kind of to round us off. And the first one is, I guess, those transferable lessons, not just from the business journey, but I guess your journey leading up to where you are now in terms of life, that when you're talking, or, we're talking out there to people potentially thinking of starting businesses or anything like that, what are the things that have put you in good stead now you've actually taken a breath and looked back and gone, oh yeah, that happened. So what's helped you get to where you are now?
Again, something that I've kind of had to learn on the way is, and it's easy to say, it's harder to do, is to sort of be unapologetically yourself, because I thought that I had to act or be a certain person or act a certain way to be in business. And actually, I realized very quickly that that's not good for anyone. Like, just be yourself. And with that, you don't have to know it all either. You can either figure it out on the job, learn about it, read a book, listen to a podcast, and here's a great example. So you don't have to know everything. It's fine not to. Sometimes it puts you in good stead, actually. So being yourself, and then, don't be afraid to ask for help, because more often than not, people are very willing to help. And it's 100% not a sign of weakness, which I always thought, which is a stupid thing to think now. Now I know it's not at all. It's actually really brave to be able to ask for help. So there's a couple of things that I found. I don't know if you see many like memes about running your own business or starting your own business, but they seem to be rife on Instagram. And my youngest wants to be an entrepreneur. Don't know where she got the idea from, but she wants to own her own business. And I sometimes see this thing where it says, you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, or your passion, your dream, your love, and it's all about, it seems to be like, if you're not enjoying every single minute, then you're doing something wrong. And actually, I don't think that's the case, because I absolutely love my job so much. I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be more grateful for this situation, for our customers, the team, and everything. The whole situation, I'm so grateful for it. And I literally wake up and I love coming to work every single day. But some days are hard. Some days are tough. Some weeks are. Some months are. And it's a roller coaster. And, you have bad days, and you might cry, or you might get angry, upset. And that's okay. I think that's just part of life. It's not because I hate what I'm doing or because I don't love it. So I think it's a bit unrealistic to think that if you you've got to love every single day, because I just don't think that's the case. I don't think that's realistic. So I think for young people that are thinking about starting their own business, like, it's okay to have bad days. It's not meaning that you're doing the wrong thing or you're in the wrong job. Like, it's just life. It's just, that's part and parcel of it. And I think it's actually, I know this sounds a bit cliche and a bit cheesy, but it's nice to have those bad days, because it really helps you to appreciate the good ones. And we don't get many, which is good. I don't get many bad days at all. But when you do, it just helps you put things into perspective and go, oh yeah, but tomorrow's a new day. And when I have that great day, I'll be really appreciative of it, because I've been through this bad day. And it could be for any number of reasons. Sometimes it's just the printer going wrong and it's like out of your hands or whatever, or whatever. It's not, it doesn't have to be massive, but sometimes you can just have a difficult time. And I think that's one thing that I've really tried to drill into Lola, that you might have some bad days. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. Like, it's normal, it's fine. So I think that's quite important to know, particularly when you're just starting out, that it's not that dream that you're seeing on Instagram of every day is going to be amazing because you're pursuing your passion or whatever. It's like, that's not quite realistic, and it's okay.
I think that's a really, really nice message. And I guess our final thing, and I asked this to every guest, and I think given the situation you had over the last 2 years, this could be a little bit more poignant. So if you had to go back to your 12-year-old self in the shoes of perhaps your 12-year-old going through that over the last couple of years, what would be your message if you were starting out all over again to yourself?
Don't do it. No. I mean, probably to believe in yourself. Believe in myself and know that you're capable of actually so much more than you give yourself credit for. Well, that's quite deep, isn't it?
No, I think, and this is why I like doing the podcasts like this, because you get past the cliche, if you like. And I think perhaps you might see sound bites on Instagram or reels or whatever it is. And actually it's just it's the last 1% and everything's fantastic. And, went from 0 to £1 billion and in 5 minutes and everything's brilliant. And all you've got to do is just do this. And fantastic. That sounds great. So I think it's really good to kind of pull back the curtain. And I remember I had Jake on the podcast maybe a year and a half ago, and he said exactly the same thing about this curiosity of wanting to pull back the curtain. And I think too often we see brands out there, especially local brands, not the massive multinational chains, but we don't know the story behind them and the people running them and how they've got there. So I'm really grateful for you coming on and sharing this, because I think there's a lot of people out there either on this journey or thinking of starting this journey. And I think it's really valuable for them to hear those insights, because perhaps the world that they see isn't the one that is reflective of what it's like actually living it. So no, Natalie, it's been absolutely fantastic. We're going to include the links to what you do, socials, everything in our show notes to make sure people can follow up and spread the word. But just a huge thank you for sharing your time. It's been awesome.
No, thank you. I really do appreciate it. It's when people say you've got a good story, you don't see it yourself, do you? Because it's just what you do. It's your life. But it's always lovely to have the opportunity to chat about it, and it's nice that people are curious about it as well. So thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. And don't forget, we've got a back catalogue of content that goes all the way back to January 2020, including fighter pilots, Olympic champions, TV presenters, and inspiring authors. We'd really appreciate it if you can give us a quick rate and review, however you're joining us today. And if you don't want to miss out on any future episodes, make sure you hit subscribe. Our community update drops once a month, and we've got some great guest content being added, so be sure to sign up for that. And finally, we're all about inspiring and supporting as many people as possible. So if you can share this episode with one person that you think would enjoy it, that would be really, really cool. Thank you again for joining us for another episode of the Rogue Monkey Podcast.